Welcome to CNR Fishing Masterclass. You join me here today at Tong Norton Mere to hopefully try and catch some skimmers and some bream. Okay then, so once you've got to your peg, you've had a good look at the water, and in your mind you've got a good understanding of what you think you're going to do. The first thing you need to do before you do anything else really to do with your gear is mix your ground bait. We need to get some water into the ground bait, let it settle whilst we're setting up our kit. So ground bait selection for today, I've got 3 bags of ground bait here and a bag of pellets. So behind every one of my mixes there'll be a reason why each ground bait goes in. So the first ground bait for today is Dynamite Bait skimmer mix. So this is going to be the base of my mix. Because we're fishing for skimmers and bream, then this is going to be my number 1 ground bait. So all we're going to do is take a tub or a cup of some sort so you can measure what's going in. That's 2 points. So a full bag of the skimmer mix is going to give me 4 points of ground bait. That's a good start. So you know 4 points of skimmer mix has gone into the mix. The next up is going to be marine halibut. 90% of the time you're going to get some information on the venue, and I know from the information I've got, a lot of carp bait goes into this reservoir or big lake, whatever you want to call it, but it's a natural venue and a lot of pellets go into it from carp anglers. So what I'm going to want to introduce is a pellet based ground bait. I've gone for marine halibut because it's just a really good big fish attractant. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put 25% in, so 50% has gone in of the skimmer mix, which is a full bag. So I'm going to put around half a bag of this marine halibut in. It's full of like crushed halibut pellets and amino and really good fish attractants. So that's 2 points of marine halibut. Oh, smells lovely. Into the mix, and I'm adding that for the bigger fish. So we've got that skimmer mix in there, that's for bream and skimmers, fish of all sizes, and then we've put the marine halibut in to target the bigger fish, to attract them bigger fish. Next is Dynamite Bait Swim Stim Black. This is the reason for this, it's a fish meal ground bait, so it's going to add more fish meal content and it's going to darken the mix off. It's not going to send it jet black, it's just going to send it a nice dark colour. And we're going to put 25% of this in as well, so that'll be another 2 points. And there we have it, our mix for today. The dry ingredients, make sure you give them a good mix around. And that there is the mix that I think is perfect for this venue off the top of my head. So I've been told like what species are in here, how big they grow to, and I've adapted 3 different ground baits into one ground bait, and that is going to hopefully target the fish that I want. What we've got then is some micro pellets. I'm not going to add these straight to the ground bait, I'll put these in a separate tub, but we will add them as we're going along. The reason I use micro pellets and not 2mm pellets is because micro pellets are absolutely tiny. A lot of people say, yeah, I've used micros, when they actually haven't, they've used 2mm pellets. Micros will keep the fish in the peg for an awful lot longer because they find it hard to eat individual pellets. They'll come in gill feeding because that's the only way they can eat them. So we'll soak some of them up in a bit. Right, once all your dry ingredients are mixed together, we're just going to add water a bit at a time. There you go. That's took around 1.5 pints of water just to get it to a nice consistency so it forms a ball but breaks up, and we'll leave that now for about 20 minutes, half an hour, while we're having a plumb up with the rods. Now our ground bait's just settling down and we're waiting for the water to all soak into it. We're going to come to our peg and we're going to set our rods up. So the first thing we're going to do, put your line through all your eyes obviously. So the first thing we need to do is put our swivel on. The swivels I use are not actually for feeder fishing, they're the Waggler Link swivels from Preston Innovations. The reason I use these is because they've got a nice round bend on them, and I've got the most confidence in that. So we're going to put the line through the swivel and let that run up the line. Next thing we're going to do is place on our swivel. The swivels I'm using are the size 12 diamond eye swivels from Preston Innovations. The reason I use these is the diamond eye, I think the hook length sits lovely on them. That's the reason for that. Next thing we need to do is do a 3-inch swivel boom. So what we need to do is just lick your fingers to create a bit of friction, and then with your fingers just twist the line. Make sure the swivel's pulled into the boom, there we go. Twist the line, causing the boom to swivel up. We want it around 3 or 4 inch, so it drops just below the feeder. There we go. That there has caused your swivel boom. All we need to do now is tie a knot in it. Go through once, go through twice. Just hold where you want the knot to be. Give it some lubrication. Pull the knot tight. And there we have the swivel boom. So once you've got your knot on there, all we're going to do with the tag end is just trim it, and you want around 2mm sticking off, just like that. The reason we want the 2mm is for our stots to butt up against. So what I'm going to do is take a number 8 stot, place that on, and we're just going to place another 2 up against that. Make sure all the slits are aligned. And then once they're on, butt them all up together. And what this will do is when the feeder butts up against them stots, it'll cause the boom to stick out away from the feeder. I'll just put a feeder on now just to show you how it looks. Once the feeder's on, as you can tell, the free stots kick the boom away, and then the boom hangs level with the feeder. Your hook length will attach to that, and then it just kicks it away. If we didn't have them free stots on, it won't kick it away. It's as simple as that. All three rods will be set up on this, and I use this for probably 95% of all my feeder fishing. So the rod choice for today, for the long line, I've gone for the Cadence CR10 13 foot number 2 feeder. It's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, I've gone for the number 2 because the number 3 is probably a bit too much, I think, for skimmers, and this number 2 it's just such a beautiful rod. For the money, it's absolutely unreal. It's probably worth 3 times as much as what you'd pay for it. It's lovely and soft, but when you do hook a better fish, you can feel that the power's there, and it's got no problem at all getting them bigger feeders out to distance. And we're going to fish this on the longer line today. For the shorter line, I'm going to be using one of my favourite rods, which is a Daiwa Tournament 11 foot feeder, and I've set 2 of these up, one with braid and one with mono. The braid is 08 and the shock leader is a £6 Daiwa sensor. That's for the short line. Going back to the Cadence rod, the braid again is 08. The shock leader is £8 Daiwa sensor. Hook choice for today on both rods is a Preston Innovations 434 in a size 14. It's a lovely hook, and it replicates one of my favourite hooks, which is the Gamakatsu 2260. However, because you're only allowed to use barbless hooks here, I have to stick with the Preston 434. If I was allowed to use barbed, I'd go down the route of the Gamakatsu 2260. They are just fantastic. They're a light gauge but really strong. These are the hooks I used in my barbel feature. That's just to give you an idea how strong they are, but they're such a light gauge, it's unreal. The downfall with these Gamakatsu hooks is the smallest you can get is a size 12. It's a small size 12. It's like the same as a 14 B911 or 14 434. So it's like a size 14 hook. If I need to go smaller than this with a barbed hook, I'd normally use something like a B560. But as times are changing and kit's getting better, I have seen a hook that I am going to switch over to. I think I really like the look of it, which is a Preston Innovations N30. It's basically exactly the same hook as that Gamakatsu, but you can get it all the way down to a size 20. So I'll be keeping my eye out for them when they come out, and when they do come out I'll be using them, I think. So yeah, that's my rods and that's my setup really. Okay, and so we set our rods up, and I've just put 1.5 ounce bomb on, and this is to plumb the peg up, and I've chucked it out to around 60 or 70 metres, and we've got a count of 2 out there, so every 1 second with 1.5 ounce bomb is around 3 foot. So that tells me it's around 6 foot out there, and I've come back and about 40 turns is a count of 3, so it gets deeper as I come back. So this bank must be the deepest bank, and the far bank must be a shallow bank. So that tells me we won't have to cast far on a peg like this. We can put 2 lines in, one short and one long. So the short line's around 7, 8, 9 foot, something like that, and then the long line is around 6 foot. So we've gone for 11 foot rod for the shorter line and a 13 foot rod for the longer line. And no matter what the wind or the weather conditions, I should be able to hit the distance with them rods. So let's go back to our bait now, get it riddled off and get some into the peg. Okay then, so we've just left our ground bait while we was doing that with our plumbing our rods up, and we've come back to our ground bait, and it looks like it's on the drier side. If I was going to pole fish or cup the bait in, I'd add more water to this. However, as we're going along the day, we can experiment with drier mixes, wetter mixes, so I'm going to leave it at this state. What we're going to do, we're just going to get our tubs. These are fantastic because they've got lids on. Once our ground bait's in, we can zip it up and it's going to retain the moisture what we want it to. So what we're going to do is just take out the ground bait that we want for the day. So fill that tub up, and then our working bowl, fill that up. And there's none left in there, so that's a perfect amount of ground bait for me. We've filled that tub, and then we've filled our working bowl. Our working bowl is the tub we're going to actually like fill our feeder up out of. So I can experiment with different consistencies of the ground bait with this, different amounts of particles, this, that and the other. Yeah, so we're just going to put that through a riddle now, and then it'll be good to go. If your riddle's old, I'd always advise to use a glove when you're pushing the ground bait through, because you can get pricked by the riddle, and if your riddle's rusty and dirty, then it's not going to be very pretty when it gets infected. Well, this riddle's near enough brand new, so it's not rusty or anything, so I'm fine pushing it through with my hand. And there we have it, our ground bait riddled. Just put that back into your bowls. Keep it nice and fresh. These EVA tubs are absolutely fantastic. I have used quite a lot over my time, and you'll see in my videos I use different ones, but I've settled on these Reeve ones. They're new out actually. They're really strong and the lids close really easy on them. On my other ones it was just a chore to close the lids. With these they're literally open and close so easy, it's unreal. And that's our ground bait done. Put them to one side. All we're going to do now is do our micro pellets. Put some in a tub. You only need about a pint, and then you're just going to cover these so the pellets are just soaked in water. So they've all seen a bit of water. Make sure they've all got a bit. And then put them to one side. Next up, what we need to do is sort our particles out. So this morning on the way I popped to a shop called Angler's Peg in Cannock. I didn't even know it was there, to be honest, before today, but I picked up some casters, a few maggots and some corn and some worms, and I must say the casters are probably the best I've ever seen. So yeah, they come straight off the riddle, and if I go next time and they're the same, I don't think I'll be going anywhere else apart from there. So a lot of people ask, why do you put your casters in water, and when do you not put your casters in water? For me, the lighter the caster, the better when you get it from the tackle shop. And these casters in vacuum packed bags, I personally would stay well away from them, because you don't know how long they've been in there for. Because these vac pack bags are designed to preserve the caster, so for your eye you can't see how long they've been in there. They could be 4 weeks old, but as soon as you open the bag they're going to go grey and horrible. These, straight from a tackle shop, you know how long they've been on the riddle for, because any longer than a day they're going to turn like dark brown. If you're getting light casters from a tackle shop, that's a good thing, because you can turn your own then. All we're going to do with these is just place them into a tub. And then we're just going to leave these. I want these a bit darker, to be honest, so I'm going to put them to one side for 10 or 20 minutes until they're at the right colour for me, and then I'll put water on them. What water does, it stops the process, so it stops the caster turning. The caster will still be alive, but it'll stop it changing colour. So once it's at the right colour for you, then add your water. Don't add your water if you want them to keep turning, because they won't keep turning. Next up is dead maggots. I'd never go bream fishing without dead maggots. I'm just going to put these into a tub. And then just cover them in water. what you're doing there is just keeping them fresh basically. Make sure they're all covered in water. Next is live maggots. These was from Angler's Peg again. Great big red maggots live. I always like to take some live maggots because it's a nice starting bait. In that first hour, when you don't know what you're going to catch, you put a live maggot on, you'll catch everything that swims basically. So yeah, we've got some live maggots. And then corn. Probably the most renowned bait in the world. It's caught probably more fish than anything else. It's a nice bait because you can put a bit through the feeder and you always know something's on the bottom then. Just make sure you take your cans home with you. And last but not least is my worms. I've got two kinds of worms today. I've got dendrobenas and red worms. Absolutely fantastic bait for skimmers and bream. They absolutely love them. If you can get some, then I'd highly recommend it. Just go to your local horse stables, ask the farmer or the owner, whoever it is, if you can have a dig around in their muck pile. I can't see why they wouldn't let you. It's just horse manure basically. Go to the bottom of the pile, just dig from the bottom, and eventually you'll find them. And that is my bait covered. So let's go and get some bait introduced into the swim and hopefully catch some great big bream. Putting some bait into the peg. We've picked two lines, and this is where you need a bit of thought really at your start of your match or the start of your session. So we're going to start on our longer line. So this is the line you're going to feed first. So we're going to put about 4 feederfuls in at the start of a big cage feeder, and then we're going to come back onto our shorter line and feed that, because whilst we're feeding our shorter line, then the fish have got some bait on the longer line to maybe settle on. So we'll go for that now. I'm not going to put any worms in the peg to start off with, because I want a joker up my sleeve, for instance, and I want something to hold something back to how do you put it? So if the fishing's hard, basically, you want something to trigger them into feeding. If I put all my aces into the peg at one time, I've got nowhere to go basically. So I'm going to hold the worms back for now, just fish them on the hook. Then if it does get hard, I can chop some worms up and put them in the peg. Because we're coming out of summer now, I'm not going to fill the peg in. I'm just going to put 4 in on the long line and then 8 in on the short line. I'm going to leave that short line for most of the day and then go on that later on. Hopefully the fish would have settled there, then we'll do a big weight of fish on that short line later on. To take a nice big feeder, we've gone for a 15 gram cage, but it's a big cage. To take a nice big feeder, we've gone for a 15 gram cage, but it's a big cage. Because it's going to be full of ground bait, we don't need much weight onto the feeder. So just to kick off the peg, I'm just going to go with majority ground bait with the odd dead maggot in there and a few casters and a couple of pieces of corn. soon as you feel the feeder hit the bottom, you want to be striking the bait out. And this is going to cause a nice cloud to attract the fish. If the water is really deep, so for instance if we had, I don't know, 15 foot of water, you could strike the bait out mid-depth, and that's going to leave a nice cloud of bait going through the water column. And you only want to be squashing the bait in nice and loose so it comes straight out the feeder. You don't want to be putting too many particles in at the start because you don't know how your day's going to go on. If it is really good, then we'll start really cramming the particles in later on in the day. And that's our long line fed. Whilst we're feeding our short line, that'll give our long line time to rest, 5 or 10 minutes maybe, and then that gives you the best chance of catching fish straight away. So that long line was fed at 55 yards, and then this short line is done at 30 yards. So on this shorter line we want to put a few more particles in because we're going to be leaving it for the majority of the day. we've had a few fish off it now, and it started going funny, to be honest. So what I'm going to do now, I've just got 150mm of worm, and I'm just going to chop it up, not into small pieces, but into larger pieces. And I'm going to add this to a bit of castor, and then this is the time now, because we're coming towards the end of our session. Now we can start forcing the peg. And I said you want to leave the ice up your sleeve, and this will be my ice. So if I put worms in and it does nothing, then I've pretty much exhausted my swim basically. So I'm just going to chop these up just into biggish segments. I'm just going to add it to a few casters. If there's any like massive pieces left in there, just give them a chop. You don't want anything over like 10mm long really. So you want nice big chunks. Now I'll introduce a bit of this onto the longer line, and then just have another go on this shorter line. We're going to put this onto the long line, and hopefully it'll force an extra few fish that are left in the peg to have a feed. We put that worm in literally 40 seconds ago. It was in the water, it's landed on the bottom, the tip's gone straight round. And that's what I mean by just leaving yourself that ice up your sleeve, so then you can force your peg towards the end of the day. If you start forcing your peg in the first hour, you'll probably catch for 2 hours, and then you probably have nothing at all. You want to just nurture your peg and just grow it slowly, and then when it does die or the fish go funny, then you can force your peg. Well, as you'll see, I've had a fantastic day catching skimmers and bream. I hope you've learned something, because that's the aim of the game. These beautiful fish have learnt me a thing or two today. So yeah. Fish of all sizes. And everyone is a swimmer. Right guys, I've run out of bait, unfortunately, so I've put the fish back, but just a quick rundown on how the day's gone. So we started on the long line with our 13-foot Cadence number 2 rod, and we've just built that peg slowly for the first hour, and then after the first hour we've started just putting more particles in, and we've got a nice run of fish, some better quality skimmers and some bream. And then after like 2.5 hours, I was getting liners, so there was quite a few fish there, but I think I'd put too many particles in, so I cut the particles out, just fed a bit of ground bait. We got a few more fish, and then it went funny again. So that's the time when I used my short line to rest it. We've come back on our short line, and I've nicked a couple of small fish, but it wasn't very good, the short line, but I just used it to rest that long line. And we've gone back on the long line, and it still wasn't the best. So I'd exhausted the peg really. And if you can remember at the start of the video, I said you need an ace up your sleeve, and that was my worms. So I've chopped 150mm of worms and put it with about 50mm casters, so it's really worm rich. And I've introduced some worms, and it's just brought the peg back to life. I think if I would have done that at the start, I would have had a really good first hour, maybe first hour and a half, and then the peg would have died. So I think we've fished it right today, and yeah, I hope you've learned something, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.